This meeting is being recorded. Oh no, that doesn't happen until I hit the record button in here. Huh? Hit answer. Here is the link. So I think you can start, Ben.
Cool. All right. Thanks for coming out tonight. Tonight we have the Ben Ramsey, the PHP release manager. Ben, the 0.1, if I'm 1.0, I guess, since I think Ben's a little older than me. And, herder of the elephants, apparently. So excited to have you, Ben.
Thank you. Are we ready? All right, thank you very much. And yes, the herd of elephants behind me is not my herd of elephants. It is in fact not even real. It's well, it is a real herd of elephants, but it's a green screen. This herd of elephants belongs to Noriko Yamamoto of the Japan PHP user group. So I grabbed the picture and decided to put it up behind me, so you don't see my messy basement behind me or a green screen. Thanks for having me here tonight at Merge PHP. I'm really honored to be here. And tonight I'm going to be talking about tools. Let's see if I can get my screen sharing. Is that showing up okay?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so tonight we're here to talk about cool tools for PHP development. This is really a talk. Well, first of all, let me tell a little bit more about me. As Ben said, I am one of the PHP 8.1 release managers, along with Joe Watkins and Patrick Allert. And I'm also the maintainer of a library called Ramsey UUID. And so if you've seen any composer packages that have the vendor name Ramsey, that's me. There's a bunch of others out there. I tend to bite off more than I can chew, so I have too many packages that I am working on and developing right now. I'm also one of the co-organizers for the National PHP User Group, which is also kind of sort of meeting virtually right now. We're kind of a little bit in limbo as we just kind of like aren't sure what is the future holds, which I think kind of everyone else is in a similar boat. I'm also a staff engineer at Skillshare, and I will show you the ubiquitous Skillshare is hiring slide. If you want to work for a company, or if you want to work at a company with people like me and Samantha Quinones and Jessica Maurahan and others, check us out. We've got several positions open right now, and we also have lots in the pipeline. So there's just, kind of looking forward. So if there's nothing there right now that looks appealing to you, but the company looks appealing, just let me know, and I can check on it for you and see if there's something that might be a good fit. So tonight, I want to talk about cool tools for PHP. Really, the point of the talk is not exactly about the tools themselves, but more about a developer experience around tooling. Developer experience is something that really within the PHP community, I think is just now kind of being talked about. It's something that I've heard a lot more about within the JavaScript community for years now, and also the Laravel community talks a lot about developer experience, but it's not something I've seen talked a lot about in the general kind of greater PHP community. So when I talk, we've probably heard terms before like user experience. So developer experience is similar to a user experience, but it's obviously focused on the developer, not on the user. So you are the developer developing an application for a user, and developer experience focuses on the experience you have while you're developing. So let's talk about what a little bit more about developer experience, what it means. This is a quote that comes from a paper in 2012, which is around the time this term kind of was coined, and they were calling it DEX at the time, but they were saying that developer experience consists of experiences related to all kinds of artifacts and activities that a developer may encounter as part of their involvement in software development. So they divided it into roughly three buckets. There's the infrastructure, how a developer feels about their work, and then how they perceive the value of their contributions. And they put it together in this kind of a diagram where it's like a pie diagram of some sort, where they've divided it up into these three sections, where one is cognition. That's how do the developers perceive the infrastructure they're working on. The other one is affection or affect, how they feel about their work. And then the other one is conation, how they see the value of their contribution. I think all three of these things are really important to think about, especially in open source development, but also within the development of your own team, wherever it is that you work. These are all important facets of what goes into the experience that you have on a daily basis as you're developing. What I want to focus on, though, is more about the infrastructure part. That's the tool part. So we want to talk about kind of how you perceive the platform, or the platform you're working on, the infrastructure. That's the servers, that's the code you write, that's the processes you run to execute your tests. All of these things are all about kind of the infrastructure. And then that, what dovetails on that is like how you feel about the work as you're working with those tools. So that's what I want us to focus on. I've already kind of gone over the conceptual framework here. But again, we're going to talk about mainly focusing on how you feel about the infrastructure. So how do you perceive the infrastructure? Do the tools get in your way? Are they a joy to use? Do they spark joy? And so the idea here, the concept is that the better experience a developer has with their tools, the more efficient and happy they'll be. And there have been studies out there that have gone over this kind of a hypothesis that, the better experience you have with your tools, the happier you are. And they've done studies to show this. And I dug through a bunch of those on like the IEEE computer.org, all of the papers there, and on the ACM. And so I didn't want to put a whole bunch more data in here, but basically, yes, the experience matters. And also, like, this idea of sparking joy kind of comes from the Marie Kondo, I don't know if I'm saying her last name right, the Marie Kondo School of Thought on Organization. But that is that, like, if something doesn't spark joy, then just get rid of it. It's not worth keeping anymore, because there's no joy in it anymore. So if we think about our developer tools in a similar way, like if something is a pain in the ass to develop with, well, then find a better tool, or make a better tool, or change it up somehow. Do something that lessens that burden and actually makes it a joy to work with. And I was going somewhere else with the spark joy, and I've just lost my train of thought on that. So yes, does it spark joy? So when I talk about cool tools, other than rhyming and being kind of an interesting phrase, what are cool tools? Well, they are the tools that you need to do your job. They are the tools that make your job easier, and they're the tools that bring joy to your work. And now I remembered what I was going to talk about regarding joy. I used to kind of like make fun of this idea of, you've probably seen tools where are like git commit tools or those kind of things that embed emoji in like commit messages or in the change log or those kind of things, or colors everywhere within your terminal. These were things that I kind of poked fun at, a few years ago. And now that as I've started looking into it more and more, these are little simple ways that make our jobs a little easier on us, or that make them a little more fun. So the more joy that you can like put into the work that you're doing, the better you're going to feel about the work that you're doing, and the more productive you're going to be. And so little things like colors and emoji and git commits, they're all good. Because they help us feel better about what we're doing. So our focus today, how can you create better workflows for the tools you already use? Workflows are some of the most painful parts, or bad workflows, I'm sorry, are some of the most painful parts of our work. So we want to try to improve those workflows, and we want to talk tonight, we're going to talk about what kind of tools you can use to improve those workflows. Also, considering that programming is a team sport, how can you share these workflows with your team to make sure that everyone on your team is following the same patterns and the same workflow? In other words, how can you improve your developer experience? Whether you're a team of 1 or a team of 50 or more, how can you improve the DX for everyone you work with? So this is going to take me into a live coding session. So let me switch the screen sharing here. And I also realize I've never done this. Let me see what happens when I do this. It says hold shift to select multiple windows. What does this even look like? Let me look at the, anyway, I don't have the YouTube video up in front of me. Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah, right now we're seeing both your slides and the terminal.
Oh, perfect. That's very interesting. That's a new feature in Zoom here. I'm just playing with like live during presentation. Sorry. Actually, I'm going to switch over to just the terminal window. Oh, that's not the terminal window. Come on. There we go. So we're going to start off talking about some tools. And the first thing I want to talk about is our workflow. And I'm going to start out here by, I've got a small repo that I have set up here, and we can look inside of it. And there's a few basic files in here. I've already put some of these configuration files because I didn't want to bother trying to create configuration files during the presentation. So they're already in here, but the tools are not yet installed. So if we look in our composer.json file, you'll see there is nothing in our require dev. So we're starting with a blank canvas. We have an empty project. Now, actually, I want to remove some stuff that's not supposed to be in here. Now, one of the things that I like to have on all of my projects, well, not one, like 4 of the things I like to have on all of my projects, and probably a lot of people have on their projects as well, are things like a unit testing framework, things like coding standards, tooling, so like PHP Code Sniffer. I also like to use SOM and PHP Stand, which are both static analyzers. So I'm going to pull those into my project and get started with those just so we can kind of see this process. So I'm pulling these 4 tools into my project. Oops, Composer is now doing this fun thing. All right. So, so I've now pulled them all in, and some of the things that I tend to do on a regular basis, let's look in source. So I've got an example.php file here, which has an example class, and it has a greeting and says, hello, whatever your name is. So I have written a test for this as well. And the test basically just asserts that if you pass the word friends to greet, it will respond with hello friends. So one of the things that I often find myself doing is running my unit test. So let's see, that's vendor bin PHP unit, right? So I ran my unit test, it passed. Now I mentioned PHP Code Sniffer. So another thing, a tool that I like to use a lot and I'll run is PHP Code Sniffer. So I'm going to run that, PHP CS. There we go. It passed. There's 2 files there. That was my example.php and then my test example test.php. Now I like to also run static analysis tools. So I've got SOM and PHP stand for that because while both of them do a lot of the similar things, there are things that each one of them are a little better at or do a little differently. So I like to keep both of them. So let's see, I'm going to run SOM. And all right, no errors found. Great. Now I want to run PHP stan. Okay, great. No errors. All right, so everything looks great. So I know that my tests are all passing. All the things that I want to have passing are passing. These are kind of at a very high level. These are the tools that I'm always going to run every time I make changes. I'm going to run them, but when I push them up to my repository, I want team members to run these when I set up a continuous integration environment. So like if I'm using GitHub Actions or something like that, or Travis or Circle CI or whatever it is, to run a bunch of tests after I push things to my repository, it's going to run all of these things. But the thing is, that's a lot to type each time. And I'll come back to the terminal app later. But that's a lot to type each time. So, and I used to, before I kind of built workflows up, I would find myself like using the arrow keys in my terminal to go back to those commands and run them. And I'd write something test and I'd go back and I'd be like, oh, I want to run that test. So there we go. I ran the test. Every time I made a change, I would have to run these things over and over. Then I discovered that very similar to Node and npm, your package.json. If you've ever looked at a package.json, if you do JavaScript development, you might have seen a scripts property or object. And within that, you can define scripts that you want to run. And then you can type like npm run and then a script name. Composer has the same thing. So if let's take a look in our composer.json file. And you can now see I've required these 4 development packages here. But there's no script section. So I'm going to add a script section. And I'm not in an IDE, I'm just in Vim. So it's not going to auto add things for me, which tends to mess me up in a live coding session sometimes because I often forget commas or add extra commas. So bear with me. So we're going to add a script section. And we're going to call our script tests or just test singular. Whoops. I want this to be an array. Now, your script can be a string. So we can just have a single string and we can say PHP unit. Now, because this is within the context of Composer, when we call it, Composer knows where your vendor bin directory is. So you don't have to type the full path to it here. You can just type the name of the command that lives there. So it can be a string. It can also be a fully qualified class name with a static method to call, or it can be an array of either of those two things. We want to make an array of command line commands. We're going to call PHPCS, PHP stan, som, and PHP unit. So now I have created a workflow within my composer.json that allows me to run these 4 commands with a single command line command. And what's better is that it puts it in my repository. So now when I've pushed this to the repository, I can tell other people, which includes my team, or maybe if it's a public project, I can tell other open source developers, hey, run composer test before you push up to the repository. It'll run everything I want it to run. And that way you can catch things before you push them. So now that that's in there, I can just type composer test. And you can see that it just ran all 4 of those things with that one command. And as I said, this is a workflow now. I've put them in the order that I want them in. I can give them any properties that I want to give them. So you don't just have to sit here with just the names here. We can pass parameters to these. I'm trying to think of one to pass to one of these. Let's see, PHP unit has, maybe that's right. Let's see. Oh no, I have the wrong thing. I can't remember what it is. There's an option that you can pass to PHP unit that'll have it print out the test a little differently. But my point is you can pass different options and settings to it to tweak it, to get it just the way you want it. You can add all the commands you want here. We can add more things if we want. We can echo things, the sky's the limit right here. See, this is also a shorthand in case you run into a case where there's any collisions, like let's say, for example, you want to create a script called help, but Composer already has, well, let's not say help because that's kind of silly. Let's say list. Composer already has a list command, right? That lists all of the commands. And in fact, we can also see in here, let's see, test. So it now has in this list the scripts that I've added. And it can also, you can see hello up here as well. So if I want to add a list command, I can do that. I can, let's just call it list so that there's a collision here, and we'll just use ls, which just lists the directory contents. But Composer list still lists all these commands. So Composer has the run script command, which is effectively what the other commands were doing. They're just kind of proxying through run script as a shortcut. But I can also do run script list. And it also kind of gives me a little warning there that there is another one named list, but it's going to use the one that I created in this case. We can also, as I was pointing out, when you list the commands, you'll see them in the list when you use Composer list. You can also use, it is scripts description. And this is super helpful for your team. Whoops, this needs to be an object. And so we can say test, run all of our custom tests. So previously, if I scroll back up, you can see test is here, and it just has a kind of default message, runs the test script as defined in composer.json. And the hello one said the same thing. Runs the hello script as defined in composer.json. Well, now when I run composer list for test, it says run all of our custom tests. So you're able to add information here, helpful text that can help your team kind of when they're looking at the list of commands that they can run, understand what it is that these things do. So now that we've talked about kind of how you put your workflow there within your composer.json, we can add as many scripts as we want, and we can have them do all sorts of custom things. We can use it to do all of our testing. We can use it to do building. We can use it to package things together. Whatever we want them to do, we can have them do those things. And they're centralized in that one location. But if you find yourself using a lot of the same scripts over and over across projects, let's say that you've got multiple projects, more repos than one, you might want to copy and paste those into all the different composer.json files in all of your repos. That gets a little tedious. And also when you just find yourself wanting to change one of your workflows, maybe your team decides they want to run things in a different way and you want to roll that out across all your repositories, you now have to go edit all of your composer.json files. Well, one way to overcome this and to make it more efficient for your team, especially if you are often creating new projects. My team creates new repositories a lot because we've started going to more like standalone library development that can be used across projects, and each library gets a new repository. So in order to share a lot of the same tooling and a lot of the same workflows with all of these different repositories, you can create a Composer plugin. And a Composer plugin is the same thing as a regular library, but it's specialized as a plugin, and the commands will be made all part of Composer. So that's what I want to show you next. So now that we are here in, we've got, here, let me clean up our composer.json because I'm going to be installing something that's going to have some of the same names here. So I want to get rid of these. And I'm going to use some of my own script, some of my own packages, not really to toot my own horn, but because I know them really well and it'll be easy. It's easy to talk about them. So I have one Composer plugin called Composer Reple. And so we'll require this. We'll say, yes, we trust Composer Reple and are enabling it. Now, when I run Composer test, or I'm sorry, Composer list now, this is a plugin, so it adds a command. Not all plugins add commands. Some plugins do different things, but one of the best things about a plugin is that you can use it to add a command. And we'll take a little bit of a look through some plugin code here in a minute. But this shows you the command in the list, and it launches a development console for PHP, which stands for read eval print loop. So if you're kind of curious about it, you can download it. What I like about this is that because it is a Composer plugin, when I run it, damn it. Let me look at composer.json. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to run it right now without debugging this. I know what the problem is, and it has to do with Symphony. Ooh, I know what I can do. Symphony 6 packages. So I'm going to switch to PHP 7.4 because some packages have not updated for 8.1 yet. And now we'll do composer update. Okay, so when I run composer REPL, it opens up a shell. And this is, you can do any PHP command in this shell, and it will execute it. You don't even need to put semicolons at the end of your lines. But what's cool about this is that because it is a composer plugin, it has access to the context of my composer composer.json. So everything that my composer.json knows about, including my own classes and code, this REPL now knows about. So if I do something like example equals new Ramsey tools example. Well, I thought it would do autocomplete. I now have an instance of that class that's in my own code, and I can say hello, merge PHP, and whoops, it's greeting, sorry. I think it's just greet. There we go. So hello merge PHP. But you did get to see some errors happen, and you now know that the REPL kind of like responds in kind, and you don't get kicked out of it, which is what you would do if you use PHP-A. But I'm not here to show you the REPL. I'm here to show you that a plugin has access to the context of your application, which is a really cool thing. And because you can do all sorts of neat things with that context. So let's look at another package that kind of shows a lot more of what you can do. And this is Ramsey Dev Tools. This is another composer plugin. And yes, we have to say we want to accept the plugins and trust them. All right, so now that I've included that, when I do composer list this time, you'll see a big difference because this has a lot of commands. This is my own personal package that I use for all the tooling that I want to have on all of my repositories. I use it as a dev dependency on almost every repository because it provides a lot of these commands right here. These are all the commands it provides. You can also see that it honors namespacing of commands. So any command that's like the command namespace and then uses the colon, that becomes its prefix. So you can see everything under analyzes right here. So if I go composer list test, I'm telling composer to list everything in the test namespace, and it does. A neat thing that we can do here, and again, I'm showing this to show what you can do with a plugin, is I can go into, because your plugin has access to the context in your composer.json, you can go in here. I thought I already had a section in here. I'm using this extra section or this extra property, which a lot of projects are using. And in here, I have decided, and this is all documented in my package. So it's not something that I would expect anyone just to know off the top of their head what they can do. But I have documented some of the options that you can place in here. One is you can put a command prefix. And again, I'm not showing you this to show you what the command prefix does. I'm showing you this because the plugin has access to all this information. So when you build a plugin that your team can use, it has access to any information that you put in your composer.json. So you can set up custom things per project while still using the same plugin for all your projects. So now if I say composer list, I have told it to prefix everything with a dev namespace. So now I've got all of my dev commands. It doesn't do sub namespaces, which is, a little unfortunate, but this is helpful because if I want my team to know all of our custom commands, I can say, hey, just do composer list dev, right? And here's all the commands in the dev namespace. Yes, now let's take a look at what entails creating a plugin. So I'm going to share my browser screen here, and we're going to take a look at, well, let's take a look at the Composer Reple one first, because it's a really simple one. I'm going to bump up the font size here. This is my Composer Reple repository. And within this repository, I want to point out a couple key things. We don't have to worry about everything else. We're just focusing on the plugin part. If you look in the composer.json file, this is a key difference from other Composer packages. The type is composer-plugin. Some packages, the type is library. Some packages, the type is project. Those are the two types that you've probably mainly used the most. If it's an internal company application, you'll probably have type project. If you're building a package that is going to be consumed by others through Packagist or even through private Packagist, you might use type library. When you want to create a plugin, you use type plugin so that Composer is aware of that it hooks into how Composer works. So now let's look at how it hooks in. I might have missed something. Okay, no, I didn't miss it. All right. If we look at our source, oh yes, I remember what I was trying to find. All right, back in composer.json, there is another one important part of your Composer configuration here, and that is under extra. There is this property called class. So if you're making a Composer plugin, you have to provide the class that gets that hooks into Composer. So Composer knows that this is the class to load and then execute when it runs. So if we go now, and it can be any class name, it doesn't have to, be Composer Reple plugin. It doesn't even have to end in the word plugin, but we just use that class property to tell Composer where it is. So if I go look at Reple plugin, we can see that we're implementing several different things. The main thing that you have to implement is plugin interface. But in order to provide other capabilities, you might implement other things like command provider or capable. These can also live in other classes if you wish, but I've put them all on one class just to make it easier. And so when we look at the plugin interface, that means we have to implement these three methods: activate, deactivate, and uninstall. I'm not doing anything when you deactivate or uninstall the package. And when you activate the package, the only thing I'm doing here is setting Composer, the value of Composer to a static property so that I can get it throughout the application. The command provider requires that I add this method, get commands. And in this case, I only have one command. And we'll come back and look at that command in a minute. Then the capabilities is a way for me to tell Composer what capabilities this plugin provides. And in this case, I'm telling Composer it has a command provider. It is a command provider. So now let's look at this Reple command, because in a nutshell, because when you're creating plugins, for your team to share across projects, commands are probably going to be the thing that you create the most of, because they're going to give you a lot of the flexibility you need and the power you need to do whatever the things are that you need to do within your workflows. So let's go look at this REPL command. It is just a Symphony command. That's all it is. If you're familiar with Symphony console commands, this is a Symphony console command. I know that if you're familiar with Laravel even, I believe Laravel under the hood uses Symphony console for its commands that you can hook into Artisan. So if you've worked with either of those kinds of frameworks, you would be familiar with this code. Really, you just have an execute method on it, and it executes the command. You might also have some other things like this configuration sets the name and then a description and aliases, but the main thing here is it's a Symphony command. I am extending a composer command, base command, but that is just a Symphony command. It's extending Symphony commands. So that's it. Like for creating a plugin. I mean, this is a one command plugin. It provides that REPL command. If I want to create something that has a lot more commands, we can just take a look at this. This is the dev tools that I was pointing out a minute ago. But if we look at the plugin here, you can just see that it just provides a lot more commands. And they're all Symphony console commands. And it just exposes them to Composer. So now with this plugin, when I install the plugin in any project, I have access to these commands. And I can even use these commands in my continuous integration environment. Like I use GitHub Actions a lot, so I can put it into my actions to call these commands. At work, we use Circle CI. So within our Circle CI scripts, our YAML files or whatever they are, we're able to like put these Composer commands within that, and then all of us collectively will use these commands as we're working on a daily basis. They provide a lot of our everyday kind of workflows that we would use. All right, so that's plugins. So we've taken a look at how you would create scripts within a single repository. And then that way you can share them with other people working on that repository. Looked at creating a plugin. And my ultimate goal here was just to show that plugin is not some vast project. It can be very simple and small, and you can definitely use them within your own projects. And that way you can share the same workflows across multiple projects, across multiple repositories. Now let's take a look at how we can enforce that. So I run these commands, but it's a manual process. And when I push it, it might go through an automated process in my continuous integration environment, but there's nothing that's making the user, the developer, run the commands locally. And ultimately, I'd love for them to run them locally, because that could prevent them from pushing something and then having to wait on CI to fail. So the next thing I want to do is look at Git Hooks and how we can use Git Hooks in order to enforce these workflows. So back over here in my terminal, let's see, I'm going to require a tool called Captain Hook. And Captain Hook also has a plugin for Composer that's going to help out a lot too. So we're going to require Captain Hook. And I already have a configuration file because I set it up beforehand, just to make things a little smoother here. I'm also going to do, let's see, I want to add something to my composer. Oh, here it is. I want to add this to my composer.json file. Now you're not going to see this do anything right here, but Captain Hook has a way of saying, so when you install Captain Hook for the first time, oh, actually, I did, let me show you what happens. Git, not Git, Composer. Is it uninstall or remove? I always forget. We'll try uninstall. Nope. It's remove. Yes. All right. I installed it without. All right. Well, I'm going to do this. I installed it, not hooks. All right. I already had hooks in place from previously working around in this, and forgot to show you what it did when you required Captain Hook. So now that I required it, okay, now this is what it does. The first time you require it, it's going to go through these questions like install commit message hook. And we're going to say yes, and install pre-push hook. Okay, yes. So if you have an open source project and you've got contributors who are pulling it down, and then they run Composer, update or Composer install, they're going to get these questions. They're not going to know exactly what to do because they don't know which hooks that you want them to use. And so they could just say no for all of them, and then it effectively disables Captain Hook. So we don't want to do that. We want to require our users to use the hooks, especially on projects like at work, and we're all using the same workflows. I want everyone to have those hooks in place. So in my composer.json, I can go in here. Captain Hook has an option that you put in your extra. You put this on your repository and you say force install true. Now, anytime someone runs Composer install, when they pull your repository down, it's going to automatically install those hooks. So now I'm going to require it because I don't already have it required, but you're going to see it's not going to ask me any of those questions anymore. It just automatically installed them. You see all those messages right there. So that's a key point here, that when you share your hooks with your team, you want to force your team to install it. Everyone may have you may have a difference of opinion on that, but my opinion is to force them to install the hooks so that they are running, so everyone is running the same things. All right, now that we have our hooks installed, let's go look at Captain Hook as a configuration file. And let's see, I have some dummy stuff in here. I'm not going to walk through everything in the configuration file, but you can see that the property names are things like commit message and pre-commit. And these are one-to-one with the names of Git hooks. So as you can imagine, commit message runs when you do git commit, it goes through several stages within Git. And when it hits the commit message stage, it runs this, or it's going to validate your commit message against whatever we put here in the hook. Before the commit happens, it's going to run pre-commit. So let's see what happens. Let's just see that in action. So in this case, our action is echo hello, which is nothing really. But then up here, you can see that Captain Hook provides some default actions or built-in actions. And this one uses the Chris Beam's git commit message philosophy, which is to write an imperative commit message. And then there's some options for that. You can also see that this action is a fully qualified name to a class, and this action is just a terminal command, a shell command. So you can kind of get an idea of the flexibility you have here. So I'm going to say, let's just add our changes to composer.json, and we'll say git commit. And okay, it was very quick, but it echoed hello, or it called that command just before the editor window came up here. And I'm going to do something here. We'll say fixes thing. So you can just see this fail. All right. So this Beams validator found that I had a problem in my commit message. And it says, oh, the subject line has to start with an uppercase letter. And that's because that's what that validator does. So let's commit again with a proper message and say add plugins we want to use. Horrible commit message, but there we go. So you can see now that pre-commit ran, prepare commit message did not run because in captainhook.json, I have it disabled. Commit message ran after I typed my commit message, it validated it. And then there's no post commit hook right now, so it's also disabled. So these four things ran in succession when I did git commit. So now let's take it a little step further. We've talked about scripts, we talked about plugins. Now we're talking about hooks. Let's add those workflows into our hooks. Excuse me. So, excuse me. All right, I'm actually gonna pull this down instead of copying and pasting it. So I'm gonna pull a Captain Hook JSON file that I have in my PHP Library Starter Kit package. And we're going to just save it to, not that, we're going to save it to Captain Hook here. All right. Unable to resolve host address. What did I type? Here, let's just, no, oh, I know why. Okay. All right, we've overwritten it now. Okay, so I've changed the contents of Captain Hook JSON, and now we're going to look at it and just see what's in here now. Okay, so I have some special rules that I like for my commit messages that Captain Hook does not have out of the box. I like to use conventional commits. You can go read about conventional commits if you just search for conventional commit. It's very big in the JavaScript world. And I got used to it on some projects at work. So I've kind of bought into it. So I created a Captain Hook action called validate conventional commit. So that's what I'm using here. And then I also have, so now here, let's see. So that's my commit message. Let's skip pre-push for right now and go down to pre-commit. So on every commit, I want to run composer validate. And we can tell Captain Hook with these conditions to only run this action when any of the files staged are composer.json. That way it skips it if composer.json's not staged. The same thing goes for composer normalized dry run. I want to make sure that like my composer.json follows a certain format, and that's what composer normalized does for me. The next thing I want to do is lint the syntax, check if there's any syntax errors. So I have a command called dev lint syntax. It basically runs PHP parallel lint, I think is the name of the project. And in this case, we're saying any file stage that are of type PHP. That's when we want to run it. And we can also use like a kind of variable here to get just the files of type PHP to pass to the command, which is pretty cool. So now that's there for my pre-commits. I'm doing the same thing for style. And so that's PHP Code Sniffer. And then I also have another thing. I'm using the prepare commit message hook, which is another hook that I find really interesting because I've said, hey, you know what? I want to walk people through kind of a question answer wizard when they're creating a commit message. This way, they are just prompted to follow the format of my commit messages, and they'll follow them, hopefully. And then down here, every time there's a merge, I want to run composer install, and only when composer.json or composer.lock change. And when I do a checkout, I want to do the same thing if those files changed. So that way I don't have, like, that's one of those things that you forget to do. And then you're like, why is this messed up? Well, because the wrong version of a package is installed because you were working in a different branch and then changed branches. And now you're working in a branch that expects a different version of that package. So that happens a lot to me. And I always forget why it's doing that. So this is a way of saying, hey, when you change branches or check out code, let's just run composer install and get everything back in working order. Okay, so now that I've got that in there, let's see what has changed. I want to, that's weird. I don't need this file. I want to add my changes to composer, to Captain Hook. So that was a big file that I changed there. So I'm going to add that. I do want to, here, let's just go ahead and commit that so you can see what this does. And kind of running over on time a little bit, but I'll be wrapping up here in just a minute. So this is what happens in that prepare commit message hook. I've created an action that will walk you through these prompts. And so the type of change I'm committing, we'll call it a chore. And I'm not going to use scope. And here I'll say, add all my workflows as Git hooks. And I'll just hit enter through the rest of these. Then it shows me in my editor window here again, and I will save. All right. And then my commit message is validated. All good. Now I want to just kind of show what happens if I go into example.php, for example, and let's screw up the bracing here a little bit. And so now we know, like, if I run composer dev lint style, it's gonna, give me errors, right? Because my braces are on the wrong lines. But if I add that to the commit, that's called staging it. So now if you say git status, that file is now staged. And I say git commit, well, it's going to run through all of my steps there. And now it bailed out with the error message. So if I go up here, you can see that this action failed. And here's the error message, same error messages. So now, hey, I've got this as part of my one of my commands. I can just say dev lint fix, and now it fixed. Now I'm going to re-add that. Why did it skip them? Wait. Did I commit and forget? Hold on. Oh, because I put the braces back in the same place, so there's no change to the file. Dummy me. Anyway, I was going to try to show that it would execute these right here, but anyway, I ran git commit and it did nothing. So it skipped everything. Anyway, so we've now at a point where our workflows are now baked into our project. When a developer, whether a new developer or an existing team member, or if you're working with open source projects, maybe it's a contributor, whenever they pull down the repository now and then they run composer install, it's going to install all of these Git hooks for them automatically. And when they use Git just normally, it's going to walk them through the workflows. It's going to run those workflows for them. And you can also see in here, I didn't do this in, whoops, not composer JSON. In my Captain Hook configuration, I had left out the static analysis from the pre-commit hook, because static analysis kind of needs the whole project when it's considering how to analyze your code. But in in pre-push, I did put composer test, which I have set up to run all those things. So when I run composer test, it's going to run everything here. It's going to do that when I try to do git push to the remote repository. And that's going to, if any of that fails at that point, it won't push. Now, there are ways to get around this. We can say no verify, -- no verify, I think. And when I'm doing git push or git commit to get around it. And I've had to do that sometimes when I'm just trying to make quick commits locally to test something. But overall, this is a way of enforcing your users to or your teammates to follow the same workflows and the same patterns every time they commit code. So let's go back to slides. So we've covered using composer scripts to stitch together workflows and share them with team contributors, using the composer plugins to combine workflows into commands that can be shared across projects. And then finally, using Captain Hook to ensure that your team and contributors follow those workflows seamlessly. There's a whole lot more information we could go over about how Captain Hook works and how composer scripts work. But you can find out more information by going to these pages online. So at gitcomposer.org, there is a section on scripts. And then there's also a section on plugins. And then Captain Hook has good documentation about setting it up and using, making the most use of all of its hooks. And those are both great projects. The Captain Hook project, the lead developer on that is super receptive to help. If you have any questions, just reach out to him. Very welcoming person. And let's see. There's lots of cool tools out there. So I've just shown you like a small sampling of some of the cool tools that I like to use. These tools, I think, the way I've put them together, I think that they make my job easier. They make the jobs of all my teammates easier, and they make our work a little bit more enjoyable. We also have in some of our commit Git hooks, it'll print out like little colorful signs and emojis and stuff like that. So I didn't show you any of that here. There's also a little bit of stuff that we've done too, like the lint fix. That is part of our pre-commit hook. We have a little bit more complexity than I could show in a presentation, but what it does is it runs PHP Code Sniffer, and then if it detects things that it can fix automatically, it will store that information and then proceed with the commit. And then in the post commit, it checks to see that there were files that could be fixed. And if there were, it then runs commit lint fix, and then it makes a commit itself. So there's a little bit of that. That method works most of the time, but it can be fraught with peril if you have changes that you have not staged and you want them to stay. We try to stash things and then reapply the stash after we run lint fix, but sometimes lint fix can actually change one of those lines of code, and that's not cool. But anyway, it's just an idea of you could end up using these workflows to actually apply fixes like coding standards fixes as part of your pre-commit hook. But I am a little wary of that on my open source projects because I don't want things to just go all kind of willy-nilly on things. All right, so let me here. So I'm going to take questions now, but I did want to point this out in my slides. I have 3 slides of a bunch of tools that I found that were cool. I don't use all of these, but I asked online, like I asked on Twitter a few months ago, like, what are some tools that you think are that you can't live without, like tools that you like to use that make your job easier. And this is a whole list of tools that people gave me. So I wanted to provide this here for you to kind of just like browse through. Afterwards, I'll share those slides and you can take a look at these. Each one of these is a link, so you'll be able to get to the project. And there's many more at packages.org. So I do want to leave some time here for questions. The first question was about my terminal. I know that may have gotten answered on the YouTube stream, but the terminal I use is iTerm2. And specifically, I have, let's see, I have this Starship cross-shell prompt that is the prompt I'm using. And here, let's see. What does you would like to answer this question live do? I don't know what that means, but I'm answering it live right now. I clicked the wrong button. Maybe I was going to try to paste a link to Starship. It's starship.rs, and Starship is the colorful prompt that I use, and the colors in my terminal, I can't remember what they were called, but I think if you go to starship.rs, I believe it lists the theme, and it's the same theme that they use because I liked it. I thought it looked good. And then let's see, PHP Stan Jeremiah has a pro paid option that provides a web UI and interactive fixer. I have not tried the pro version goodies. That is something that would be neat to try. If anyone else has tried it, maybe mention that in the Q&A, and we'll maybe figure out if there's anything to share there. So Garrett, you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, for SAST, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but that based on the rest of that, I'm guessing you're talking about using it for security stuff. I've used it a little bit here. I'll show you what I've done in open source projects with SOM, but I don't know enough about this to really be able to talk about it. But if I go here, let's see. Also, I have this awesome tool that I like, and I will promote here, PHP Library Starter Kit. I'm not going to talk through it right here, but if you look at the README, it's a tool to help you create a PHP library. But if I go look in here at the GitHub action workflow, I have a section called security analysis that does run SOM with --taint analysis, and then creates a Serif report, and then uses a GitHub action to upload that back to GitHub. And then if you go under the security tab, you can't see this on the project. Only the project maintainers can see the code scanning alerts, but it says nothing. But this becomes active when you start uploading those Serif files. But other than that, I don't really know exactly what it's doing, so I can't really speak to that. I hope that helps. Oh, and at work, we're using Sneak for all of our security analysis. Let's see, do plugins install in the, okay. Do plugins install in the vendor directory like packages? Nope, well, yes, I'm sorry, I was misunderstanding. I thought you were saying, do they install in the vendor bin directory? If they have a binary with like a a bin script, they do get installed there. But yes, they just go in the vendor directory like everything else. And let's see, Bob, do you worry about or do anything to prevent building too much tool chain, tools falling out of being maintained out from under you, or worry about just building something that's a disaster to maintain? I think the thing here is you want your tools to work for you. You don't want to work for your tools. And that's really like the whole idea of this anyway, like putting them together in a way that means that you don't have to really think about them running. If you find yourself having to maintain the tools like a lot, then maybe that's a sign that you have over architected your tools, or that you're trying to get your tools to do too much. And if that's not your business, then you probably should rethink how you're running your tools and try to scale back from that. But I don't think that's anything that I've worried about too much. I've worried about like spending too much time on things like PHP Library Starter Kit that I now have to maintain, but that's sort of a hobby. So I live with that. Are there any other questions?
Great talk, Ben. Yeah,
Thank you.
That was good. What made you choose that space thing? What's it called? Starship.
Starship
over Oh My ZSH.
Oh, I am using Oh My ZSH.
Oh, okay, it's on top. You can use both together.
Yeah, Starship is really, yes, you can. In fact, in Starship's, if you go to their website and scroll down, they have tips on how to install it with anything. And in fact, I think they recommend using Oh My ZSH somewhere in there. But yeah, you can just add it to your ZSH config, and it's really about the prompt. So everything else in ZSH is still Oh My ZSH.
Cool.
It's
I
really
like the plugins that come with it. I got quite used to the Git plugins. It is nice.
I don't find myself using them enough, or maybe I'm using them and I don't realize I'm using them. I don't know.
GST for status.
Oh no, I haven't done that. No.
Yeah,
Even though that's.
Yeah, it's like I use that all the time, and then GAA if I'm being lazy and I just want to add everything.
Yeah, that's not cool.
It encourages you.
I always advocate against adding everything, because I've reviewed plenty of pull requests where I'm like, how did this get in there? And they're like, I don't know how that got in there. And I'm like, yeah. I think I know how it got in there.
You added everything. Yeah. No, it's like I find that it encourages like a much quicker feedback loop, like you work on something and then you commit it, right? And then but I don't know. I like adding more detail in the pull requests. I don't know, maybe there's other people out there that I don't, as I like just getting it committed and then like, fleshing out the details later. But
yeah, I mean, I think that like the way we work, we kind of leave that open to how the developer wants to do it. Some people make like a million different tiny commits, and others make like the one big commit. Or if you're like me, you try to make the commit history make sense over time. So there's a lot of like squashing and force pushing to get things to look right. But then at the end of it, we just squash that commit into the main branch. Every pull request gets squashed into one commit. So it doesn't matter what all the other commits were.
Yeah, keeping the folder small is definitely a good thing. And squashing is probably something that people need to do more of. let's see. Let me. I like the part. So the DXE developer experience. I was thinking. I read a book a few years back, and I think it was Laravel specific, but I had it's called Code Happy. Like optimize, like basically optimizing, for for happiness, for joy, right? Like, and I think that it spoke to me then, and it speaks to me now. So I definitely like that part.
Did you say the book was called Code Happy?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. It's
sounds
probably
like-
outdated. It's probably like Laravel 4 or something at this point, like, but
oh, I see. I got it here. Okay. Yeah, it was back in 2012. But I think the reason I might be interested in it is because like you said, it kind of ties into what I'm talking about here. So there may be some interesting quotes in the book.
Yeah, some nuggets that are still relevant. So the workflow stuff, I definitely think that is good for something that like everybody can benefit from. Making it easier to run, Code Sniffer and static analysis type stuff. Do you, of all those tools, can you give us like a couple different scenarios, like when does it make sense to put it like in a CI/CD server, and then like when does it make sense to like keep it all and do it locally?
That's a good question. I think so. We tend to think, well, I say where I work, we tend to say like everything has to be in CI/CD, like everything should be in CI. It doesn't all necessarily have to be local, especially because like our test suite might take a while to run. I do tend to run the whole thing on occasion just to make sure that nothing else is broken. But ultimately, like if we have developers that don't run the whole code, the whole test suite, that's okay because CI is still going to catch that. All of this stuff is going to be caught in CI. So even if a developer doesn't do any of it locally, it gets caught there. And that's where it stops for us. That's where the buck stops. That is going to cause the build to fail, and they will get a notice on their pull request. And we have some different tools will leave comments and stuff on the pull request itself to be able to like let them know where the problem was and that kind of stuff. Or within the checks on GitHub, it has links off to the different services like Circle CI and wherever, so they can go take a look at the output from the test. But that is the must. It has to be in CI. Other than that, we do have a pre-commit hook that, like I was saying earlier, one of the things it runs is our code sniffer, and it runs the fixer for that too. And one of the main reasons for that is because like the philosophy we have is that we don't want the developer being tripped up by having to worry about what their code style looks like. We are concerned about code style, but that's not anything we should ever find ourselves kind of
breaking the build kind of thing.
Well, we should never spend time on a pull request or in discussions talking about why their stuff doesn't match the style, right? It should just be automatic. And so our IDEs kind of like my IDE tells me, like I use PHP Storm and I have it configured with Code Sniffer, and it shows me where things aren't, correct. But even if I didn't follow that, like, that pre-commit hook is going to fix it. And sometimes, like often it does, because I'll miss stuff and it fixes it and I don't have to think about it. So those are like, that's really kind of the thing that I think is important for team members when they're using these things is so they don't have to think about those things. The less they have to spend thinking about those kinds of things, the more time they can spend writing code and kind of enjoying their day.
Solving problems. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking the other day is like, I forget what the question was, but I feel like we shouldn't be bike shedding. We should be bike building. Is kind of
right.
like,
that's a good quote.
Yeah. So
I think there's a time and a place for bike shedding, but yeah, most of the time, I like that. You should be bike building.
Yeah, I'll have to think of a good, make it into a tweet, so that it's a little more succinct. But the slides. A couple of people were asking in YouTube. Are you gonna post them on like Twitter or?
I can post them on Twitter, and I can post a link on Twitter, and I can give you the link too. If I don't know if y'all post the links to slides on your meetup pages or what, but I can share it around.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, when people are asking for it, we'll send out the link.
Okay.
But yeah, and then can you tell people about the foundation? I'd love to hear a few words on the foundation if you have some time.
And which foundation?
Yeah, which foundation? Like the Discord thing, the community thing.
Yes. Okay. So there's so there is a PHP Foundation that launched in November, around the week of Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving. That PHP Foundation was created by Joe Watkins and Roman. I'm going to mess up Roman's last name, so I'm not even going to try to say it. But he works at JetBrains, and JetBrains helped set that up. And so that is the PHP Foundation. Alongside that, for many years now, I've been trying to set up a community foundation called PHP Community Foundation. And that is something that kind of ties into a bunch of stuff that you might have seen online that I don't really promote that I'm the one doing these things much, but I run like the Twitter account at PHPC. And also there's like a lot of the places you might see PHPC are all under the banner of this phpcommunity.org project. And so this is a project that I'm going to hopefully kick off with more community involvement this year. I have been really bad at like trying to do that, and mainly because it's just there's a lot of time, right? But I want help with it, so I'm working on that. But awesome. At any rate, if you're interested in helping, sure. so the differences between these foundations, so the PHP Foundation is primarily and initially focused on solving a real need with the core community right now, and that is that we haven't really built that community up, and we just lost. I say lost, but he's not like dead. But Nikita Popov has left JetBrains. JetBrains was actually paying his salary to work on PHP Core. He's left JetBrains, and he is no longer day-to-day active with the PHP Core. He's working on. I think the thing he's really wanting to focus on right now is LLVM and Rust. Yeah, so he is working on
sounding right.
And that means that he's not working on PHP, and we've kind of taken him for granted, I guess, these last almost 10 years that he's been working with the PHP. And he started on it like in college, and it was like kind of a project that he started on in college, and he continued on with it.
He must have joined around like 5.6 or something, maybe 5.5. It's been a while.
I don't remember. Yeah, it's been a while. But a lot of modern PHP is the way it is because, thanks to him. So so the PHP Foundation is set up for the purpose of creating a fund to actually pay some core developers. And there is a process around submitting an application or something for access to some of that money, or a full salary or whatever. I don't know the full process right now, but if you're interested in that,
there's like the Open Collective or the Twitter, right? Maybe it might be a good place to send people.
Yeah, they have their Twitter account is the PHP Foundation, I think. So that is them, or the PHPF. I'm sorry, the PHPF. The thing that I've been working on is called PHP Community Foundation, and you can actually get in touch with us like by going to phpcommunity.org, or if you're interested in like joining the Discord, you can go to phpc.chat, and there will be some links there. The main difference is that we're more kind of focused on engaging the community and trying to find ways to kind of connect people in the community and build up the community in ways by supporting it. One of the ways we want to support that is through maybe some user group sponsorship type stuff, or trying to figure out a way to help user groups like with money if they want to accept money but don't want to set up the corporation type stuff, which I know is like a thing that a lot of groups struggle with. And also, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. So some of the other programs we have kind of in mind are things like working with like the PHP Test Fest again, and maybe also some kind of I don't have the document in front of me. Hold on, let me just pull it up, because I'm just like, my brain just kind of like went.
Yeah,
nowhere.
You're like, oh, I'm done with the presentation, and then it's like, yeah,
exactly. All right,
and we could go through some of the details, offline too, because I'm definitely interested in helping out with the community stuff. It's just the last couple of months since I found out about it. It's been super busy with holidays and everything, and I've been meaning to reach out to you. So I was like, well, I have him on the Zoom. I might as well just ask him a few things. So we'll set up a call and go through some of that.
Yeah,
I think
that sounds good. Just real quickly, the programs that we had, because I got it in front of me now, grants for not only core development, which was one thing that we wanted to do, but now that the PHP Foundation is here, like that may be less of a thing, but grants for userland development and community development. So things like maybe there's a need for PHP Fig, League of Extraordinary Packages, PHP mentoring, Larabells, whatever. Like there's all these groups around that we could probably, we might be able to help through some kind of grant process. Also user groups.
Getting more people interested in like, anything that brings people into the language, I think is it would be a good thing for the community to focus on.
Yep. And then user groups, mentorships, conference scholarships, maybe like some kind of community awards. I know the Python Software Foundation does something like that. And then maybe setting up like one idea. Advocacy is one thing, kind of getting more people into the community. And then lastly, like continuity. Maybe there's some way we can help the community or help other open source projects when a maintainer is either no longer able to maintain or wants to step away from it. Those are always concerns. And I know we've got some groups that kind of focus on that, like the League of Extraordinary Packages. But maybe we could help funnel some money or something into that. The main thing is like to be a nonprofit foundation so that, you know, we've got like a legitimate thing that companies can donate money to, and then we can work with the community to figure out where to best apply that.
Cool. I definitely think that needs to exist. So yeah, I'm yeah. Let's talk about it, because
Okay.
I like all those ideas. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? I think you answered a ton.
Going to miss him showing up on the mailing list and ending an argument with computer science. I don't know who Bob's talking about. Did I mention someone's name that you're? Oh, yes. Yes, it's probably Nikita. Nikita's still around. Like, he is there to like support and help as needed, but ultimately, like, we don't have his full attention anymore. And so we need to come up with a plan.
Yep. I think the foundation is a good plan. So yeah, I was happy to see that JetBrains stepped up last year and made that happen.
Yep, me too.
All right. Well, it was a good turnout this month. We'll definitely you know, have you come back and you know, give the next one you know, next 6 months or something, or next year, you know, I'm determined you're going to be a regular.
I'll be happy to, but you made it sound like I'm coming back next time we're talking to, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to come back.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
So do you do your own user group stuff too, or?
Yeah, like this month we canceled. I think we've canceled the last. No, we didn't cancel December. December we just kind of chatted. Last year, earlier in the year, we had maybe 5 or 6 months of presenters, all virtual. But the later half of the year, we kind of fell apart. That's, you know,
It happens.
I mean, we have several organizers and all of us were just kind of super busy. And I think ultimately for me, like the pandemic just kind of like got tiring. And I just was like, I don't really care anymore. It's not that I don't care about the user group. I still care deeply about all those people and about like providing a space for them to kind of get together. But it was, you know, just kind of getting depressing.
It's a lot of work, and I think if, you know, the more people that, you know, help out and contribute, it definitely makes it easier. So you know, definitely if you're interested in speaking, there is a link to a form. It is a type form. If you're interested in helping out for the user group, your local user group, or Merge PHP, definitely reach out to your organizer. You know, we're always open for more volunteers. So I am speaking to you directly. You are hearing my voice. Yes, you. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, really appreciated having you talk this month, Ben.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Thanks.
Chris and the other Ben are here.
I don't think we're getting any further questions or anything else. Thanks again, Ben, and for your presentation, and always good to see you and catch up.
Good to see you too. I feel like it's been forever.
Yeah.
It has been forever.
Maybe in 2022 we can do something like this in person. We get a glimpse of it at Longhorn, right?
I would love
Or-
to get back in person.
Yeah.
Omicron is sweeping through the country right now, though.
Yep.
That was like the thing. Like we were all like, maybe we're going to be able to get back and start meeting early this year. Nope.
Yeah.
It's like half the people I know seem to have it right now.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the live stream, but I'm not gonna kick everybody off. So stay